Tom Brevoort doesn't like money. Sad. Just sad. Coming to paperback and e-readers, Esteem Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed all-new Esteem series adventure. Pre-order your copy of Esteem Season of the Witch Girl at Amazon.com and other online booksellers. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Marvel Comics editor Tom Brevoort says if you don't like Unmarried Spider-Man, you should stop reading Spider-Man comics. Now, according to Bleeding Cool, Tom Brevoort is stating that Peter Parker will remain unmarried to Mary Jane Watson in the main Marvel universe, and if you want to see a married Spider-Man, readers should go out here and buy and explore Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, this statement from Tom Brevoort basically is not a good one for the business of Marvel Comics, which has been struggling for the last 30 years, and it's a statement that really just shows how tone-deaf he is, similar to the statement that comic book writer Kelly Sue DeConnick made a couple of years ago. Now, Kelly Sue DeConnick, who works for the distinguished competition at DC Comics, told people on social media if they didn't like her comics, they should stop reading them and stop buying them. And as a result, her books at DC saw a precipitous sales drop, and it basically led to DC winding up in a situation where their comics just didn't move. And this is one of the big problems that many of these people working at Marvel and DC, and I would even say independent comics, have, is that they don't understand the concept of customer service or looking to build and form a relationship with their customers. Because this type of really abrasive and hostile statement, what this does is it doesn't go out here and incentivize customers to go out here and buy Spider-Man comics, whether it be veteran readers or new readers, because this statement basically shows little regard for the customer as related to their being considered as related to the books that they're supposed to buy. Now, when it comes down to a publisher's job is to go out here and form a relationship with the reader, a job that where you go out here and let the customer know they will be considered when they buy the books and will show respect for that customer. Unfortunately, what I have been seeing from many people in comics, whether they be working for the big two or many of the indies or crowdfunded comics, is that they don't really understand how to build a relationship with the customer that really shows how they will regard the customer in an effort to generate sales. The big problem with guys like Tom Brevoort is that they believe that, comics are a part of a corporation, and since comics are about a part of a corporation, they don't have to be accountable to the readers. No, they believe, that the corporation will basically cover the cost of these comics because they're looking to preserve the trademarks of these books. However, when it comes down to comics, comics have always been a sales business, and many who work in comics who are smart want to maintain some professionalism. You want to maintain some professionalism because every good experience people get incentivizes people to spread the word of mouth, and word of mouth is key to generating sales of your book. This is something that I basically learned working as an independent trade publisher here at SJS Direct, and one of the things I try to do is I try to foster a good relationship between myself and many of my readers. I try to foster a relationship with those readers so that they can know that, okay, I will listen to what you have to say, I will consider what you have to say, I will maintain, again, a standard with these characters where I won't go out here and radically change things the way things were changed in Spider-Man's life. Now, back in 1987, the Spider-Man character wound up getting married to Mary Jane because Stan Lee decided that he wanted to marry the characters in the syndicated Spider-Man strip, and they decided to just transfer this over to the Marvel 616 universe, and it was basically done to, again, age up the characters because the Spider-Man books were struggling as related to sales, and when it came down to, again, getting those sales up, Writer David Michelini was brought on, and they aged up the Spider-Man characters and then brought in Todd McFarlane, and this started one of the greatest runs in Spider-Man history, taking Spider-Man from being a book that was on the brink of cancellation to being one of Marvel's bestsellers next to the X-Men. I mean, from about 1987 all the way up until I think about 1995 or so, Spider-Man was a book that was selling anywhere from 500,000 to 750,000 copies a month. It was basically neck and neck with X-Men at that time, and this was all the period where Spider-Man was married, and this was considered to be one of the most successful eras in Spider-Man history. However, many in editorial, like Tom Brevoort and Joe Quesada, didn't like Spider-Man being married, and they didn't like Spider-Man being married mainly because Spider-Man being married basically made them afraid of their own mortality, and because they were afraid of their own mortality, they wound up doing damage to the Spider-Man brand, worse than the assignment of Howard Mackie being the writer, because the whole situation with Howard Mackie and the Clone Saga, while it did do damage to Spider-Man sales, was not as devastating as the damage that was done to Spider-Man by Joe Quesada's editorial decision to basically go out here and end the marriage between Peter Parker and Mary Jane. The decision to end the marriage between Peter Parker and Mary Jane started the decline of Spider-Man, because Spider-Man was still selling strongly. It was one of the strong-selling books at Marvel, even during the complete collapse of the comic book industry. Even through the Clone Saga, it was still selling decently until Joe Quesada decided to make the decision to go out and decide to end the marriage of Spider-Man and Mary Jane through the horrible storyline One More Day or Brand New Day. And that decision to again have Mephisto dissolve the marriage basically did damage to the Spider-Man character, because you took the Spider-Man character, Peter Parker, a character who represented integrity as related to great power and great responsibility, and had him made a compromise with the devil that altered the reality of the entire Marvel universe, and basically, again, compromised the integrity of the Spider-Man character. And as it compromised the integrity of the Spider-Man character, it basically alienated a lot of readers who went from being average, everyday, regular Spider-Man customers to customers who were turned off because they saw their favorite hero basically make a compromise with the devil, and make that compromise with the devil to end his marriage to save Aunt May, and again, didn't save Spider-Man because you made him betray everything that he stood for as a hero, and even worse, did damage to his continuity, all around that made it harder to follow. So the damage that was done, and what's really sad here is that Tom Brevoort, who was a part of Quesada's regime, is continuing to double down on this damage because they don't want a married Spider-Man, because they fear their own mortality, and fearing that they will die and be forgotten, not seeing how married Spider-Man was actually selling, again, better than any era of Spider-Man, and other spin-off books based on married Spider-Man, like Marvel Comics 2 Spider-Girl, were huge sellers. I mean, Marvel Comics 2 Spider-Man, which dealt with the daughter, Mayday Parker, basically was a huge hit for Marvel, and he's going to sit there and say, we want to have unmarried Spider-Man, but married Spider-Man sold better than unmarried Spider-Man, and it sold better because it allowed the character to grow, allowed the people to see the character grow and change, and we got to be able to see his life again grow and change. And that's what people wanted to see, because the character had been arrested since about 1987. I mean, yes, we had the symbiote costume, which led to a spark in sales for a minute, but the book started, after the symbiote ended, basically started to go into a bit of a slump. And then it took, again, McFarlane and Michelini coming in, giving us one of the greatest runs at Marvel. This is the run that, again, married Spider-Man. This is where we got Venom. This is where we got Carnage. This is where we got Cardiac. This is where we got so many great stories. I mean, the era of married Spider-Man, again, the best-selling era of married Spider-Man. But Tom Brevoort doesn't want to even talk about that. No, he's all about his feelings and sating the feelings of old baby boomers who want us to have unmarried Spider-Man. Unmarried Spider-Man who really doesn't have a direction, outside of shooting webs and selling pictures to the Daily Bugle, even though people don't read newspapers anymore. I mean, people don't read newspapers anymore, but he's got this whole idea of Peter Parker being single. Now, Peter Parker being single wasn't selling comics back in the 80s. It's not selling comics now. No, people wanted something different. And again, we got that with, again, the best-selling era of Spider-Man. But when you have an editor who is again, coasting to a paycheck, and that's what Tom Brevoort basically is doing, coasting to a paycheck to retirement, looking to cash in his pension, but making Marvel poor because we lost the millennials, we lost Gen Z, we're losing Generation Alpha. I mean, we're losing generations of comic book readers, and Generation Beta will basically have to deal with this confused, messed up Spider-Man that we have right now. A Spider-Man who doesn't have Mary Jane as a girlfriend, but is sitting around in his apartment looking pathetic as she's married to some Gary Stu avatar named Paul and has his kids. That's not what people wanted. No, people wanted what we got from Dan Jurgens and Peter Tomasi in Superman when they were doing Superman, right? Where we saw Superman basically having a son in John Kent and him raising his son. We saw John Kent growing up at the side of his father, passing down the values that he learned from his father, Jonathan Kent, and becoming a super son at the side of Damian Wayne. That's what people wanted to see. And that was all basically, as I see it, inspired by Mayday Parker, or May Parker. Again, Mayday Parker basically was that type of hero who was following in the footsteps of her parents. And that's what people wanted to see, Mayday in her childhood, growing up at the side of seeing her dad in action and then learning about her powers from her dad, having the values of great power and great responsibility passed down to her. That's what readers wanted to see in a Spider-Man comic. And while it may make some people feel old, again, that really isn't it's not what for them to sit there and complain about that, because we're all getting old. I'm a 51-year-old man, and I want to pass those characters on to the next generation. And again, part of passing them on is showing them people who are living in their world at their time. Very similar to what we saw in Batman Beyond. That's one of my favorite shows. I didn't even expect to love Batman Beyond as much, but what made me love Batman Beyond was seeing Bruce pass his values down to Terry McGinnis, pass down the mission and mantle of Batman down to Terry McGinnis, and us seeing the new world that Terry was in as these values were passed on and these traditions were passed on, and seeing these characters as they grow older, again, show their wisdom and their experience. That's what I really loved about Batman Beyond. And again, we're being denied all that because Tom Brevoort, again, doesn't want the Marvel characters to basically, again, grow older. I mean, Peter Parker basically was not a teenager in the 70s or the 80s. He was a young guy in his 20s, and again, married, and it was very popular. It did not affect Spider-Man sales at all. If anything, it led to an increase in Spider-Man sales, and it's really sad that Marvel doesn't like money. I mean, here you have a chance to again make this book be back in the six figures as related to sales, and even up to the million that it got on the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man #1. Again, Spider-Man #1 took place during the time of Peter Parker's marriage, million-selling comic, but many people in comics, again, they basically are ass backwards, as I see it, ass backwards in that they walk away from money. I mean, this whole thing that shows me that they're backwards is they'll go and walk away from, again, a concept that was selling, again, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of comics, and then also saying, oh, we don't want rock star creators. This is why this industry is cratering right now. It's cratering right now because we have a lot of incompetent people in charge, like Tom Brevoort, who again want to stick to our archaic ideals, but don't see the real of what's selling right now. They don't see what's selling right now. And again, in the publishing business, you do what sells. You don't care about anything else because 90% of your books are going to fail, and you need that 10% to sell. And you go out here and take the books that are selling and you push them as hard as you can. That's been the rule of the business. If something is selling, you push it hard and you keep pushing it. Not about your feelings about, oh, I don't like Peter Parker and Mary Jane being married. If Peter Parker and Mary Jane being married sells me 1 million units every month, I'm gonna do it. I mean, if John Haynes and Esteem get married and it sells, I'm gonna do it every John Haynes and Esteem book. I'm going to do it because it's going to sell, and I want to move units. I want to move units and, again, keep the customers happy. And that's the big problem with comics, is that they don't care about their customers. Again, people in editorial don't care about their customers, don't care about managing and maintaining their brand. I mean, your goal in this business is to sell units, move units, keep moving units, getting that money. And sadly, these guys, again, they want to go out here and say that they want to make a status quo that really isn't selling, hasn't sold at all. I mean, it hasn't sold for over 30 years, and the whole thing is the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. I mean, this is the same backwards frame of thinking that Kelly Sue DeConnick had before Tom Brevoort, and it shows me why we need new editorial over at Marvel, like they needed new editorial at DC, and both of these companies just need to clean house and get somebody who's a publishing professional like myself to come in, because a publishing professional is going to look at this business and from a business perspective, and again, go with what sells. And again, if it's selling, we're going to move those books. We're going to move those books because we want to move books that sell. I mean, this is almost as boneheaded as what Dan Didio did to DC's Nightwing and Robin comics, which were basically selling six figures. He canceled best-selling books and basically did it because he wanted to go in a different direction, then canceled the entire DC line and replaced it with the New 52, and they're all wondering why they can't sell comics. Well, when you don't do what the customer asks you to do, you're gonna lose money. When you don't do what the customer is requesting, then you're not gonna make money. And again, in the publishing business, you want to make sure that your customers are happy. You want to build and maintain a relationship with your customers. You want to go out here and give them Peter Parker and Mary Jane and focus on Spider-Man's rogues and focus on them and put this Paul guy in some sort of limbo, or basically obliterate him in one story, because Paul basically ain't generating sales. No, you don't want to be jerking your customers around because there's stiff competition coming from manga, stiff competition coming from independent publishers like myself. And Marvel basically, again, because they have a bonehead in Tom Brevoort following the agenda of Joe Quesada, wants to give us Unmarried Spider-Man, even though Spider-Man comics are at their lowest point. I mean, Spider-Man comics basically are selling just as bad as they did before David Michelini took over and gave us that fantastic run that he had with Todd McFarlane. I mean, they're even a worse period than that, and it's all because an editor basically, again, has no vision outside of 90s gimmicks and looking to make clickbait articles. I mean, yeah, Bleeding Cool will get a lot of clickbait on this article. They will get, and a lot of YouTubers will get AdSense dollars, but the whole thing is it's not bringing dollars into Marvel Comics for Spider-Man, and it's not really generating sales for the publishing division, a publishing division that would basically be in better hands with a manager who has passion and love for the character. Now, if you want to check out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic on Lulu.com for the same price as a 2022 Kickstarter, and you can also pick up a paperback version of John Haynes at Death's Door on Amazon.com, along with the other books in the SJS Direct universe, like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the books in the Spinsterella trilogy, my vampire novel Eternal Night, and my sorority novel The Thetas. You can pick up all of those books in paperback and Kindle format on Amazon.com. You can find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos taking comic pros to the barbecue, you can drop a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, A Thorn in My Side. The man who rules the world takes on an agent from the CIA from the Black Blue Way in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' A Thorn in My Side in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.